Good morning again, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Let's give another round of applause for our first ever Student Journalists of the Year. Start out with thank you to PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Lab and to NETA for recognizing these students today. We've heard a lot about them, so what do you say? Let's hear from them. All right, Mary, we will start with you and go on down the line. Tell us, in your experience as a student journalist, what was the story you were most interested in telling and why?
Okay, that's so hard. There's so many stories, and I think every story is great to tell, but I think my favorite is the UC Enable story, which is the last story I created my senior year, and it's about a 4-year-old named Ella Morton who needs a prosthetic hand to be able to play with her sisters. So I learned so much throughout that story about how these just regular students, just like me, use a 3D printer to create this prosthetic hand. And it just taught me so much about being grateful for what I have and also being able to tell stories about children, which is really hard. So I just felt like it taught me a lot throughout that experience.
One story that I was particularly interested in telling was that of a gentleman from an area of Houston called Greens Point. Now, if you don't know, this area of Houston has earned the nickname of Guns Point because of a shooting that happened at a mall there and because of a lot of violence in that area as well, gang activity. This one gentleman grew up in Guns Point and he got into this horrible activity, and one time when he was walking through the wrong area of town, he got shot in the back by an AK-47, and unable to work, he turned to selling drugs on the street. When he got caught for that, he went to prison for 18 months. He came out a changed person. Prison changed him. He decided, I'm never going back, and I'm never going to let anyone in my community, as long as I can help it, go there. So he opened a barber shop called Life Changing Cuts, because once you go in and you get your hair cut there, you're leaving a changed person. You probably can't tell, but I got my hair cut there.
Yeah, so like Mary said, there's so many stories to pick from, but I guess I would have to say recently, I did a story about homelessness in New Mexico, because last year it was reported that New Mexico had a 27% increase from the national average. And so I interviewed this man named Daryl. He was homeless for about 40 years. And while I was interviewing him, he was giving me his backstory to how the events happened to him being homeless, and just explaining to me like, what's the problems that he has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And during my interview, he actually broke down crying, and it made me realize the stories that I report have an impact everyone, and they show that everyone has a story and everyone needs to be heard. And just, I would have to say that was the most interesting story for me, because it showed that not only do I have the power to give someone a voice, but everyone needs to be heard, and so that was the most interesting story to me.
One of my favorite stories that we ever worked on was actually the first piece I ever worked on, called Tiny Coders. It was a story about how there are elementary school kids who are learning how to code, and our video is basically based on how coding will help them in the future of work and in their future jobs. And it was very interesting because even though they're just little cute elementary school kids, they were so well informed about coding. They know way more than I do. And to see that they understood that this was a very super skilled thing that they have that they can use in their future. So that was really interesting for me.
Excellent. So you all were a part of the Student Reporting Lab Academy. Over the summer, you've produced several stories. How has your perspective changed about journalism since this experience? Anyone can start.
Okay, well, as you saw in the video, I don't know, I believe that news was for older people, so I think the PBS NewsHour kind of taught me news is for everybody, and you have a voice as a student, and your story matters, and the stories that you want to tell matter. So I feel like SRL changed the whole viewpoint of how I see news. So now I watch news every day because I like to be informed. I like to know about what's going on in politics. I like to know about what's going on in the education system. When at first it was more of a, oh, that, my mom knows about it, that's enough. So now as I'm educating myself, I'm starting to realize my voice matters. So I feel like SRL taught me a lot.
I used to look at news very cynically. News is horrible. I watch it, and God, it's so depressing. Everything, all the time. There's 40 different political scandals happening every minute. I can't scroll through Twitter fast enough. But going to the academy and being a part of student reporting labs showed me that not everything is horrible. A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one. It was amazing being surrounded by so many positive people, and being around my peers was just incredible. That they all are just so glowing with enthusiasm that I can feel it bouncing off the walls and shining into me.
Excellent.
Yeah, so before I attended the academy my sophomore year, I didn't really have an interest in news. I was like, okay, it's kind of plain dull. I really didn't have it wasn't really relevant to me with everything that was happening, like taxes, politics. I was like, okay, I didn't think it was relevant. But then after attending the academy as a fellow, I actually realized how relevant it was towards me going to DC, interviewing teens about the youth coalition that they wanted to have lowering the voting age to 16. And it was just like, news is happening, and it needs to be not only informed to our adults but to our youth as well, and the relevance it has towards everyone. And that was the impact it had toward me after, and being a correspondent made me even realize how more essential news is to everyone.
Similar to what everyone said before, when I was younger, I hated watching the news. I felt like it was so depressing. There's always miserable things going on in the world. And as a younger person, I also felt that those things didn't really matter to me or impacted me directly. But once I started getting to PBS student reporting labs, that's when I realized, okay, I need to watch these news because I need to know what the professionals do so I can use their tips to put into my work. And when I started doing that, and I started going out and filming and interviewing people and talking to people, and young people specifically, in my community, I realized how much it matters to them. And when I realized how much it matters to them and how important it is to them, I realized that it's important to me too, and that these things need to matter to us young people because we are the next generation that's coming up, and these problems are going to be given to us to solve. So in doing that, that's how it changed for me as well. And now I just feel like I can't watch the news in peace. Like every time I'm watching, I'm like, oh, that's a really good B-roll.
Speaking on behalf of the old people who used to watch news all the time, it is so invigorating to have your youth voices. Would you agree? Specifically into public media. So for a lot of you, most of you, this was your introduction, this program into public media. Why do you, now that you know what public media is and what it's about, why do you think it's so important?
Well, I think public media is so important because it tells the stories that we need to hear. I feel like public media not only tells those stories, but it helps you find your own story. I feel like, being a part of the program and being in public media and being in broadcasting, it just shaped, I think it shaped my future, which helps me shape other people's future. So I can't wait to tell the generations behind me about what I learned here through public media.
Excellent. Impressive, aren't they?
My introduction to public media was the student reporting labs, and man, I can't think of a better way to be introduced to it. I didn't grow up watching PBS Kids, unfortunately, now that I see the great programming that's coming on it.
Never too late.
I'll tune in later tonight. Thank you. But now that I've come to this NETA conference and I've seen the genuine interest that everyone here has for the good of the public, it really means a lot to me as a young person to see that you guys are so interested in reaching out to us and caring about us, admittedly.
Yeah, and I would just have to say for me, like throughout the sessions like we've seen or like the guest speakers, it truly shows there's no competition in public media because everyone wants the same goal, is to educate and inform and tell the facts for our stories for our public. And yeah, like there's no partisan, there's no bias. Everyone just wants the same goal, to educate, and so I would believe that's the importance of public media for me.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, I just believe that public media is a way for all of us to connect with each other, inform each other, learn from each other, learn together. And it's also all of our jobs to, just keep the public informed and talk about the important things that are going on in the world to make a change and make this world ours. And yeah.
Yes. So one of the things you all have heard in the last couple of days you've been here is how important it is to infuse your voice, the youth voice, into public media. So please share with our attendees this morning what local public media stations can do to engage young people and help amplify your voices.
I feel like local public media stations can do as they're doing now, just work towards getting us involved. I worked at my local CET station in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it was just so great to hear my voice heard and actually hear like people care about my feedback and they care about asking me questions. It kind of just opened up that door. So I feel like if we branch out to more students, not only just in the PBS NewsHour, but we just create more programs for media-based things, we can just spread this all over the place. I know so many people who would be interested in media but don't have the resources. So to connect to those students, I feel like will change media for the better.
Yes. You're here. You hear that, everybody?
The vast majority of my peers at my high school have no idea what public media is at all. I tell them, oh yeah, I'm partnered with a PBS NewsHour. They say, really? That's really cool. And I say, I'm also partnered with Houston Public Media. They say, what? What's that? I never heard of that before in my entire life. That's because they don't watch the news or stuff like that. They use social media now. So a great way to reach the youth of today is to get on social media and just get yourselves known. A lot of teens want to be involved with something, but don't know what to be involved with. So if you just get out there, make yourself known, tell teenagers, hey, I exist, I'm a thing, please come watch me, please get involved, a lot of them will.
Excellent.
And yeah, just going off Kaleb, engaging yourself to youth, but also going out in person and being involved with the youth, because some of us are shy that don't want to talk. But if you go out and for local stations, if you go out to your high schools or even events that has major youth in it and just say, hey, you want to come maybe do an internship or something, or come around, shadow us for a day and see how public media works and the ultimate goal for it. And also if you say news to someone, to an average youth person, they're going to say, okay, what? We need to give it a different perspective to it and make it more fun, because yes, there is the standard, but drive a new introduction for it so the youth has more of a passion to come into it, and then just being more involved with the community and the youth.
Like Kaleb said, I think social media is a great way to reach out to everyone. The great thing about social media is that not only can you connect with people face-to-face, but also you can connect with them through social media. Like Xavier said, there are a lot of people who are a little bit more shy, but reaching out to them in that manner is a great way to reach out to all of the youth community and get everyone involved. And I think that, like Jason said yesterday in the morning, identify yourselves with us, just do things that we like to do, and I can guarantee that we are going to come to you, and we're going to want to learn more, and we're going to hear from you. So, make a TikTok or two,
I've asked them to do some TikTok demos for all of us who don't know how to do that yet. And also want to let you know that they are all available for consultation after this session if you guys want more ideas on how to connect with young people in your community. So speaking of TikTok and Snapchat, what is the future of journalism with these new platforms?
Well, I think it is the future of journalism. Even now, as a student at UC, I tend to use my social media for news. So I like to educate everybody through my Snapchat. Even today, I've told everybody on my Snapchat and Instagram, like, hey, look where I am. I'm at the NETA conference. And I explain what the NETA conference is. And I kind of just spread that awareness through my social media. Because it's such a community. It may seem like social media distances us, but in reality, it puts us together. So we don't have to be in the same room to be together. I can always go on social media and just tell you what's going on. So I feel like it's gonna be in social media. Everything's gonna be. You might as well get on Snapchat, people. Get on Snapchat.
Tutorials after the session.
I'll show you today.
With a world of Snapchat and TikTok, I think that the future of journalism is going to be bite-sized or king-sized. I think we're going to get rid of the regular-sized candy bars. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Hopefully not literally. With the popularity of Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram, there's a huge emphasis on literally scrolling with your fingers. Quick, get-to-the-point content. But there's also been a huge resurgence, as you saw yesterday in the talk about podcasts. Podcasts are becoming huge, long-form content stretching over hours sometimes, really delving deep into a subject. I know a lot of my peers listen to podcasts when they're studying, when they're driving, when they're going out for a walk. So I think that you shouldn't discount long-form content in the future. Just because more people are using Snapchat does not mean you should ignore that longer-form stuff.
You hear?
Yeah, and just adding on to Kaleb to what he said, quick scrolling, Snapchat is changing the way of journalism. If you haven't seen, some of you guys do Snapchat, there are teeny bit-sized news stories that are on there that are so quick, but I feel like as the new generation comes, and even you guys as well, making a difference now, ongoing on Snapchat, maybe even TikTok, we will see, but I would just have to say, making it brief, but not losing the story, because Snapchat is so fast, and it's like that. But keeping the story alive and not losing the focus of what you're trying to say, and again, for public media, educating everyone and telling the facts.
Nice. Yeah, just to I agree with what everyone said. Took the words right out of my mouth. So
Perfect.
But yeah, I just wanted to add on so social media is such a quick and fast way to get through all the news out, but I think also just doing it in a respectful manner is very important too, to be responsible with the way that you use social media, and also because nowadays with fake news and everything, it's so hard sometimes to really find what is true, and sometimes the truth can get lost through social media, through the way that people change words and stuff like that. So.
All right, we've got a little over a minute left. Any final thoughts you want to leave with our attendees with youth voice and public media?
Yes, I do have one thing I'd want to say, particularly when it comes to the engagement of teenagers and tweens and pretty much every person under 25. When you're trying to engage with them, I would say talk to them. Actually, I'm not going to say the word talk to them. Listen to them, because teenagers are tired of being talked to and being talked at, told at, lectured.
Hear, hear.
Insert any words like that. Teenagers are sick and tired of it. We deal with it in class. You can probably tell based on how long I'm going on about this.
Great. Mary, you want to leave us with final word?
Okay.
Nice job, Caleb.
I just quickly want to say, as someone who grew up watching PBS Kids, it has benefited me so much, and I think it's one of the reasons that I am the way I am today. So thank you so much for PBS Kids, because I feel like it helped so much. And also, let me teach you how to do a TikTok. Let's TikTok.
And on that note, our Student Journalist of the Year. Thank you so much, Mary, Caleb, Xavier, and Karen.